The Goldfish Boy by Lisa Thompson. Read by Emmy. Chapter 4, What We Do About Matthew. Every day, Mom delivered my meals to my room on a tray. Lunchtime's selection consisted of one pre-wrapped ham and cheese sandwich, one sealed carton of orange juice, and one banana, and 3 unopened bottles of water to drink throughout the day. Very safe and very sterile. Food was always accompanied by Mom, trying to have a chat from the doorway. I tried not to say much and to avoid her eyes if I could. Mr. Charles's grandchildren look sweet, don't they? It'll be nice having some kids next door for the summer, won't it, Matthew? Yep, I guess so. I had decided not to say anything about the pond episode or the tapping on my wall. His daughter is in New York for a month. She's some hotshot banker, apparently. It's odd I've never known her to visit him, have you? I shook my head. Mom knew how much I watched The Neighbors, and that if anyone had seen Mr. Charles's daughter visit before, it would have been me. Isn't that funny? Those kids have probably never even met him. Maybe her usual childcare let her down or something. Yeah, maybe. I kept my eyes on my lunch. I didn't like to be talkative in case she launched into her favorite subject. What do we do about Matthew? I'm at the salon for a few hours this afternoon. Is that okay, Matthew? Will you be all right on your own? Mom had opened the head-to-toe beauty salon 5 years before. Her original plan had been to let a new manager to run the place while she popped into the odd treatment and keep up with the gossip. Lately, it appeared she had to be there every day, but I knew it was just so she could escape the problem indoors. Me. She held the tray out, and I took the items off one at a time using my fingertips and placed them on my bedside table. Matthew, is that all right? Sure. I looked up at her and accidentally met her eyes, and then bam! She was off. Good. Oh, I've made an appointment for us to see the doctors in the morning. See if we can get you sorted out, okay? She tucked the tray under her arm like a handbag. What? The school keeps calling, and now the council is writing letters. We've got to sort you out before September, or me and your dad will be in big trouble. You do realize that they lock parents up nowadays if their children don't go to school, don't you? Mom and Dad had been lying to the school. They said I had mono, of course illness they could have picked. They chose the kissing disease when I had no intention of ever kissing anyone. They must have thought it was a good choice because you can be off school for weeks with that. I think Mom even managed to convince herself that I actually had it. As in the first few days I was off, she kept asking me how my throat was feeling and offering me painkillers. Desperation. That's what it was, willing me to have something treatable, something with an end in sight. I'm not going. Don't be silly. Of course you are. It's only Dr. Kerr. You've been seeing him since you were a baby. As she spoke, she tried to look over my shoulder. I pulled the door closed a little bit. Why don't you open a window in there? Let some of that stuffy air out. Her bare foot landed on my carpet as she stepped across my doorway. What are you doing, Mom? She flinched, but I didn't move. I stared down at her painted pink toenails wiggling on my beige carpet. Can't you get your foot out of my room, please? Her back twisted at an awkward angle, but she stayed exactly where she was. Mom, please. Why, Matthew? It's just a foot. It's not going to hurt you, is it? She jiggled nervously, her naked toes snuggling into the pile. I began to shake. I'll tell you what. Let's make a deal. I will move if you promise to come and see the Dr. Kerr tomorrow morning. How does that sound? She'd have been in the conservatory this morning, her barefoot padding around the cold tile when Nigel tucked off fur balls and mascots. She must be riddled with germs, germs that were now escaping in their millions into my room. I gripped the edge of the door and thought about slamming it against her toes, but if I did that, I might end up with blood on my carpet. And that made me feel dizzy. I didn't look up. Okay, I will go. Now, can you move, please? Her foot froze. Promise? Promise. I had absolutely no intention of going through with it. You really promise. On Column's angel. That's my baby brother. He didn't come home from the hospital, and he never got to goggle over his parents' elephant mobile. But he had a grave with a white marble angel. I couldn't break a promise on something like that, especially considering what I'd done. I closed my eyes, weighing the options. I felt the door being pushed slightly. She tried to edge her way in. I promise, on Column's angel, I said. She waited a couple of seconds, and then her foot retreated into the hallway, her face beaming. Wonderful! I'll be home in a few hours. Why don't you sit in the garden today? Try and get a bit of colors in those cheeks. I will put chairs out for you. Shall I? Whatever, Mom. I shut the door and dived under my bed to grab my box of gloves, 10 pairs remaining, the bottle of antibacterial spray, and a cloth, and I did my best to try and clean the carpet. I felt my insides squirming, the way they always did whenever Mom and Dad mentioned columns. The guilt of what I'd done lived inside me, like a vicious black beetle scuttling around in my stomach. Some days I almost felt like I could just plunge my hand in my tummy and pull the beetle out. I'd throw it on the floor, its little legs frantically kicking at the air, and all my fears would miraculously vanish. I'd finally be free of the guilt, but the beetle didn't go away. It lay there, snoozing, waiting for me to relax, and then it started up, all over again. Scutter, scutter, scutter. I scrabbled the carpet and sprayed and wiped, and then I went to the bathroom to throw the gloves away and wash my hands until it felt right. It took 11 washes. When I got back to my room, I inspected my lunch closely. Everything looked unopened, so I quickly ate it up before it became infected. I put the trash out my door and then went into the office to see if anything was going on outside. I took some notes. Tuesday, July 22nd, 4:11 p.m., hot and sunny. Cars on the street, 4. People on the street, 1. 4:12 p.m., Melody Birds come out of number 3. She had changed out of her school uniform and is hurrying across the road to the alleyway beside the rectory, which leads to the graveyard. What does she do there? As Melody disappeared into the overgrown tunnel, her arms were folded and her head down, as though bracing herself against an Arctic wind. Mr. Charles appeared on his front path, wearing a red checks shirt and beige trousers. She looked like he was getting ready for a rodeo. She jabbed at his concrete path with a stiff brown broom, and clouds of dust flew up around his ankles. There was no sign of Casey or Teddy. He stopped for a moment, wiping sweat from his forehead, and then he opened his iron garden gate and began to brush the pavement outside his house. It swept directed toward the gutter. My heart started beating faster. My hands were beginning to feel unclean again. I went to the bathroom, but on the 7th wash, Our doorbell rang. I froze. I wasn't feeling clean enough yet. I rubbed the soap into my cracked skin again and ignored the door. There was another ring on the doorbell and then someone knocked on the grass. I quickly rinsed my skin in scattering water and ran downstairs, opening the doors using my sleeve. "Oh, Matthew, you are in. Is your mom there?" I shook my head at Mr. Charles, who was now standing on my front doorstep. His arms were folded awkwardly on top of the broom handle, and he looked like he was about to burst into song. I could hear the devil cat, Lizelle, meowing behind me. "How about your dad?" "He was at work," I said, and closed the door slightly. I looked behind me to see where the cat was. He was safely in the kitchen, brushing himself against the cupboard where his food was kept, moving this way and that, showing off. Okay, no problem," he said, laughing much too quickly. "It was you I wanted to speak to, actually. How do you fancy earning yourself some spare change?" She rubbed the top of his head where the sunburn was. Maybe it was because I hadn't seen him close up for so long. But his head looked huge, like a tan walnut. I could hear a steady thump 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 coming from his house through the downstairs wall. "I think they're playing football in your living room, Mr. Charles," I said. His eye twitched as he listened. "Oh, that's just a game." He pinched the top of his nose for a moment, shutting his eyes, and then he was back. "So how do you fancy doing some babysitting for me?" "It'll be the odd afternoon here and there when you're off school, so I can get on with a few jobs, do my shopping and all that." "How does that sound?" I folded my arms. "I don't know. It'll be good money. They are such an easy kids, so easy," he said, blinking rapidly. Some. "I'm quite busy, to be honest." He nodded as if he understood how hectic my life must be. Spending most days indoors doing nothing, I really needed to finish washing my hands. The germs were definitely beginning to spread, and Nigel's meowing was getting louder. He had made his way into the hall and was sitting right behind me. Thump. I could hear Casey screaming now. Mr. Charles raised his voice in an attempt to drown them out. "I guess a whole afternoon could be too much. How about a couple of hours? One even? I'll pay double." I shook my head. "You just tell me how much you'd like, Matthew?" If he could have got his hands around the door, I think he would have tried to shake a yes out of me. Some. "I'm only 12, Mr. Charles. I don't think I'm old enough." Nigel was by the bottom of the stairs now, pressing his face against the step. A tiny dark spot appeared on the cream carpet where he'd dribbled. He saw me, came straight toward me, the germs dropping off from his fur and running in all directions into the carpet. I quickly took a step back and opened the door wide. The cat blinked at the bright sunshine and then trotted outside, darting around Mr. Charles's legs and down our driveway. I pulled the door closed again. My hand was sweating through my sleeve. "I'm sure you can babysit at your age," he laughed. "Why, I was looking after my brother when I was only 7. "I don't think so, Mr. Charles," I said as he continued to rap. Thump, crash! "Granddad!" Mr. Charles's laugh stopped instantly. His shoulders slumped forward, and without saying another word, he turned slowly back home, dragging the brown broom behind him. I slammed the door and ran up to the bathroom to wash my hands again. When I got back, To the office, the noises from the next door had stopped, and I could hear the TV blaring. Out on the street, everything was quiet. The raw steaming in the heat. Nigel was in Mr. Charles's front garden, carefully tiptoeing onto the lawn, his nose dabbing at the grass as he sniffed. He didn't hear the old man approaching him from behind carrying a washing up bowl full of waters. Mr. Charles let out a roar and threw the water into the air. It splashed over Nigel in one big way. The cat froze in shock, and so did I. I wasn't a fan of the odd, vomiting flea bag, but I wouldn't ever do something like that to him. His fluffy, gingered, and white fur was now dark brown and stuck to his skin. He looked utterly petrified. Mr. Charles dropped the bowl on the grass and swung his foot at the cat, his body nearly twisting around from the force. But fortunately, Nigel had to come his senses and swerved out of the way. He squeezed through the gate, turned right, and scurried up our path. Sitting on our step, he meowed feebly, then began to lick at his fur. I watched Mr. Charles as he picked up the washing up bowl and took 2 steps toward the house. He stopped for a moment as if he'd forgotten something. Taking a step back, he tucked the bowl under his arm, looked up at me, and glared.